Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is the July 19th meeting of the Wharf District Council. For anyone who is not on and wants to witness these hearings, we will be posting them on our website as we always do. But in the meantime, welcome all. Suzanne has, as she always does, put together a good agenda for us, but it's been a little bit fluid lately. And so we're going to start out with a special acknowledgement, and I'm going to just mute that person. Okay. A special acknowledgement of Chris Fincham. I think you all know Chris, although if you're in the last 2 years, you may not have seen him in person. But Chris has lived on the waterfront for 50 years, and he's been a part of who we are now for the past 30 years in a whole variety of committees involved in planning and improving the waterfront. He's actually from London originally. If you've heard him speak, you'll know that, and you will hear him speak in a moment. He has been the treasurer of the Wharf District Council for a long time and has been on the executive board of the Wharf District Council. And, you know, he's just year after year after year, quietly and in his very professional way, has allowed us to be a successful organization through his leadership, through his great efforts and financial acumen as well. And so we have a couple of things that we'd like to do. Is Aaron Michlewitz on already?
Yes,
I'm here.
There we go. Okay. Council President Aaron Michlewitz, I understand you'd like to say a couple words. Please do.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. I just wanted to, first off, it's great to see everyone, even if it's virtually. I'd like to see all the friendly faces, and I hope everyone's doing well and enjoying your summer here. I'm still up at the State House here. We just finished the budget yesterday, sent it over to the governor, but we still have about 10 conference committees that we have to get done before the end of July 31st. And so I will be spending a lot of time over the next 2 weeks up here. But today I wanted to come and acknowledge all the work and all the friendship that Chris Fincham has provided many people in this community. I can speak personally on knowing Chris for a long time now in my roles and different roles in government that I've had. I think the first word that comes to mind, Mark, you said professionalism. I'm going to use the term gentleman. Chris is a gentleman first and foremost, and someone who not just represents the area well or the issues well, but just represents himself and all that's good about community activism and being involved. He has been on the forefront of many issues over the years. For the many of years that he was participating in what I don't think it was called the Wharf District Council that long ago. Obviously Chris can give you the more historical context on that than anybody, but he was on the forefront of trying to grow the waterfront, to a vibrant place that people can live, work, raise a family, be a community. And, like he's taught me so much about that over the years. And, he's always someone who I love to get a chat with when I can, because he does have that historical context and understanding of where we've been. And so you can only know where you're going to go. To know where you're going to go, you have to first know where you've been, as they always say. So I wanted to do this in person, and we're going to drop something off to Chris, to your house. But I did do a citation, from the House of Representatives here for you, Chris, my dear friend. And I'll just read it off real quick, just so we have it. It's be hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Christopher Fincham in recognition of your 13 dedicated years as a treasurer of the Wharf District Council and your many years of service to the waterfront community. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors, given this given this day in July 2022, signed by Ronald Mariano, the Speaker of the House, and offered by myself, State Representative Aaron Michlewitz. So, Chris, we're gonna have someone drop this off for you very shortly, and we love you and thank you for everything that you've been doing for us for all these years. Thank you, Mark.
Representative Michlewitz, thank you very much for doing that. You say what is so hard for us to properly say, but you did a great job. Suzanne has known Chris longer than I, and has been a part of what we've been doing together in lockstep for all these years. And Suzanne, you have a few words as well, I believe.
Yes, I just want to say how much we all appreciate Chris and the fact that he's been with us since the beginning and one of the founding members of the Wharf District Council, which way back when was the Wharf District Task Force. And today we've reached the point that we have in our success and good fortune in a large measure to Chris. And we thank you, Chris, and we hope you will continue to be a part of the council, even though you won't be the treasurer anymore. But we also have this little memento that we'd like to give you. And since you live next door, I can hand it to you. But it's Chris Fincham, Wharf District Council Treasurer, 13 years of service and appreciation for all your work and dedication to the Wharf District Council and the Wharf District neighborhood. Thank you, Chris.
Bravo, bravo. Nicely done, Suzanne. Thank you. At the end of this meeting, we're going to the executive membership is going to vote Martha La Posada to take over from Chris Fincham in the treasurer's position. But that comes later. And Chris, can you share with us a few of your thoughts about your time as a member of the Wharf District Council?
Sure. I feel very flattered by all this praise. I was expecting that, people would say, well, finally we got rid of him. But for those who haven't been around for all the history of the Wharf District Council, I just thought I'd give a very short, brief version of it. And it was founded in 2010 and as a tax-exempt and non-profit 501c4, and is now it's a 501c3, to serve, I quote, as the voice of the community in matters that require analysis and community opinion or action, and also to promote the common good of all community members and the general welfare of the district's communities. Initially, there were 9 members of the council, and many of them are the same as now. And the first officers were Jerry Weiner as president, Bud Risk was vice president, I was treasurer, and Simons was clerk. Suzanne Lavoie, then as now, was executive director. In the past 13 years, the Wharf District Council has gained recognition from city and state government agencies and private entities and has accomplished much. It is interesting to me to note that the ancestry of the Wharf District Council goes back to the Big Dig, the Central Artery Tunnel project in the 1980s, when many of the same members formed the City Waterfront Association to protect the district from the ravages of the proposed utility relocations as part of the project. One Central Artery proposal was to close East India Road completely while installing new utilities, which is obviously a disaster. The City Waterfront Association hired professional engineers to show that the desired result could be achieved without such a large dislocation. Also, at the insistence of the aquarium, 2 independent electrical supply lines were installed to the aquarium and incidentally to Harbour Towers to protect against power failure. As a staff member of the aquarium put it, if we lose power, we will have the biggest sushi bar in the world. It's been my honor to serve as treasurer of the Wharf District Council since its beginning. And now as the mission of the council is expanding and I'm getting older, to put it mildly, now is the appropriate time for me to retire. And I thank you all for your very kind words, and I will hope to stay on the Wharf District Council as just a member. But I look forward to its great progress. So
Great.
thank you all for your kindness.
Chris, thank you very much. I wish we could, we give you loud applause and virtual hugs.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for everything. We're going to continue with our regular meeting, as you would expect. And we're going to hear from the Boston Police Department, the monthly report, if we can have that from, let's see, who's presenting today?
I think Officer Toomer is joining us.
Is that
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Yes,
Good evening.
I'm Officer Toomer. I work at the District A1 Community Service Office. I think normally you guys get Officer Champa for your meetings, or Sergeant Trevette. They are both on vacation, it being summertime, so they are both down the Cape and during their vacation. So I am going to be just going over the stats. Not too many. I'll try not to take up too much time from your meeting, because I know you guys have other stuff on your agenda. But I'll just briefly go over the stats. I'll touch on a couple of reports, and then any questions, comments, or concerns, I'll do my best to try to answer those questions for you guys. So I'll start off with the arrests for the month, and this is going back just the past month from the last meeting till this meeting. So from June 21st till today, July 19th. And for the Wharf District, or in that area, there were a total of 5 arrests. One being a warrant arrest, one for aggravated assault. I'll touch on that report. 2 of the arrests were domestic disputes, a husband and wife that got into a dispute, and one of the 2 were arrested. And then 1 OUI, operating under the influence, arrest. So those were the 5 arrests for the month. As far as Part 1 crimes for the past month, so there was the 1 aggravated assault that I mentioned there was an arrest for. There was 1 robbery reported, Part 1 crime robbery. 1 breaking and entering into a residence. I will touch on that report. 1 reported auto theft. 6 reported larcenies. 2 reported larcenies from a motor vehicle, and then 2 larcenies of bicycles. We have seen an uptick of bicycle thefts in the District 1 and throughout the city. A lot of those bicycle thefts are the Blue City bikes, which are being reported stolen, and that's a lot of times people are renting the bikes, leaving them out front of an establishment. They're going to a store, going to eat, leave the bikes unsecure. Someone jumps on the bike and rides off on them, and then I guess to keep from being held responsible for the bikes, they have to file a police report to report them stolen. So those are most of the issues with the stolen bikes. I'll touch on a couple of reports here. First incident I'm going to talk about, this was larceny that occurred on July 12th at approximately 8:55 p.m. and this is at 50 Rowes Wharf. This incident, this was at the Wharf Seat Grill located at 50 Rowes Wharf. The victim here was sitting outside at one of the tables enjoying the entertainment for the night. I don't know if it was a movie or if it was one of the bands playing. Said approximately around 6:30 or so, she noticed that her wallet was missing out of her bag, a Louis Vuitton wallet, which contained her IDs, her passport, credit cards, and other personal items. Victim stated that she did cancel the items, but there was a charge made on one of her credit cards at the CVS located at 630 Washington Street. The detectives are investigating that. They will pull footage from the CVS to see if they can identify who the suspect was in that theft. I'm going to report on, the next report I'm going to go over is the operating under the influence arrest. This incident took place on June 22nd at approximately 6 a.m. And this was at Purchase and Oliver Street, right on the outskirts of the wharf. With this incident, officers responded to a radio call for a motor vehicle accident at the intersection of Purchase and Oliver Street. Upon arrival, they noticed a gray Nissan Versa, which appeared to have driven up underneath the gray Jeep Cherokee. The Jeep Cherokee was flipped over onto its side. The Nissan Versa was still kind of pent underneath the vehicle. The operator of the Jeep Cherokee was removed from the vehicle and was taken to the hospital to be treated for his injuries. The operator of the Nissan Versa was still on scene. Officers did speak with that suspect, and while speaking with them, did notice that his eyes were glassy and bloodshot, and that he did have an odor of alcohol coming from his emanating from his body. Officers did perform some field sobriety tests, a 9-point walk and turn, and also the horizontal gaze test with the suspect's eyes. The suspect did fail those tests and was subsequently placed on arrest for operating under the influence. The other operator of the vehicle was taken to the hospital, but was fine, minor injuries, bumps and scratches. So that was the one OUI arrest. This next report I'm going to touch on was a trespassing arrest, and this occurred on July 16th at approximately 11:30 p.m. And this was at 510 Atlantic Ave, the Intercontinental Hotel. In this incident, officers responded to a radio call for a removal at 510 Atlantic Ave, Intercontinental Hotel. Upon arrival, they spoke with the manager, who stated that they had a male in the lobby who was attempting to book a room there at the hotel, but his credit card was declined, and he was unable to book the room, but then refused to leave the hotel upon being denied a room. Officers did encounter the suspect, and turns out the officers were familiar with the suspect because they had just encountered him the night prior. He had gone to Wolfgang's Steakhouse, which is located on Court and Washington Street. He had run up a $250 tab there and was unable to pay the tab. He had made an agreement with the restaurant to come back the following day and pay the tab, which he did not do. And then this second incident with the hotels, at this point, the suspect was placed under arrest for trespass and resisting arrest, and then he'll also be charged with the fraudulent innkeeper for not paying his tab over at Wolfgang's the night prior. This next incident, also July 16th, and I don't know, people over in Rowes Wharf area or East India Road probably know that there was a body found in the water in the morning of the 16th, approximately 9:10 a.m. Officers responded to a radio call to investigate the premise at 65 East India Road. Officer observed the victim being removed from the water by Boston Fire and Boston EMS. The medical examiner did take jurisdiction of the body. There was a wallet found on the person. They are trying to determine if, in fact, the identification belongs to the person that it was found on. They don't believe, from video footage that they have from the wharf, they don't believe that he fell in the water behind the hotel or in that area. He fell in someplace else or got in someplace else. The current brought him over to where his body was recovered. But that is being investigated. Like I said, they do believe they have identification on that individual. They're just trying to confirm that that is exactly who they believe it is, then contact its next of kin before they release that information. A couple more. Another one that I want to touch on, this was a residential burglary which occurred on July 3rd. This occurred approximately 12:30 a.m. at 20 Rowes Wharf. And in fact, this was on one of the boats out there behind Rowes Wharf. Officers responded to a radio call for breaking and entering at 20 Rowes Wharf. Upon arrival, they met with the victim, who stated that unknown suspects had gained entry to his 70-foot Marlowe yacht, which is docked behind 20 Rowes Wharf. The victim stated that him and his partner were asleep below deck in the yacht, which is currently their primary residence. Stated that approximately 11:55 p.m. he heard noise coming from upstairs. Then he witnessed someone with a flashlight coming downstairs from the upper deck. The victim stated he began to yell, and the two suspects fell off the dock ramp, fled off the boat, up the dock ramp, and fled on foot towards the New England Aquarium. The victim reports that a couple of wallets were stolen. His wallet and his companion's wallet were both stolen off of the boat. We were able to get video footage of these two suspects, and there was a picture released of the two suspects, and officers were hoping that we'll be able to identify them and hopefully make an arrest in that case with the breaking and entering for the boat. And then two more reports. This other report was for a robbery. This robbery occurred on July 6th at approximately 6:14 p.m. at 111 Atlantic Ave. On this incident here, officers responded to a call for a robbery in progress. Victim reports that the suspect tried to steal his wallet. When officers arrived on scene, they spoke with the victim, who stated that as he was walking on Atlantic Ave, suspect came up behind him. Suspect threw him to the ground, tried to steal his wallet. The victim stated that his wallet contained, he had a couple $1,000s in cash on him at the time. That the suspect reached the victim's pockets, tried to steal the money. The victim was able to fight the suspect off. The suspect then jumped into a white Acura that had commercial lettering on it. He was able to get the license plate and the name of the business off of the vehicle. So officers were able to identify the vehicle and reach out to the company that the vehicle belongs to. In this incident, the victim did know the suspect. So it's probably something a little more going on than it just being a robbery. He was able to give the name of the suspect and stated that he is familiar with him. So the suspect may have known that he was in possession of a large amount of cash, and that's why he attempted to rob him. But they were able to get video footage of this, and I think a passerby also took a picture of it. So they do have a picture of the suspect in this attempted robbery, and they are attempting to identify him through the pictures and also because they have his name. So it's just a matter of time before they'll be able to track him down. And this final report that I'm going to go over, this occurred last night. In fact, it's July 19th, approximately 2:27 a.m. This was aggravated assault at 191 Atlantic Ave, the rear 191 Atlantic Ave. Officers responded to a fight call in the rear 191 Atlantic Ave. Upon arrival, officers encountered a shirtless male who was coming from the parking lot, which is located behind 191 Atlantic Ave. Officers noticed that he was sweating. He had lacerations, some marks on him, so they could tell that he had been in altercation. Officers stopped that suspect, placed him in handcuffs, just keep him under control, and to speak with him. Also, while placed him in handcuffs, they discovered a glassine bag in his waistband, which contained what officers believed to be crack cocaine. So he was arrested for the possession of the Class B substance. Officers did continue on to the rear 191 Atlantic Ave, where they did encounter the victim. The victim states that he was I guess they were camping out back there behind this location when the suspect came back there, caused a commotion. The victim attempted to get the suspect to leave. The suspect refused to leave. And at some point, the two of them did get into a physical altercation. At some point, one of the suspects did pull out pepper spray and sprayed the victim and his girlfriend with pepper spray, and then fled the scene. Officers were determined that the suspect that they encountered with the shirtless suspect that they encountered prior to speaking with the victims was a suspect involved in this altercation, and he was placed under arrest, and he'll be charged with assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, the pepper spray, and the possession of the illegal drugs that he was found to be in possession of. And I just bring this report up because just I know that we've been having, we've gotten calls and we've had issues with the homeless encampments that are popping up either down on the Long Wharf and also down behind the Chart House in the Christopher Columbus Park. We are aware of it. Our outreach teams are aware of it. They have gone down there and offered services to the people down on Long Wharf. At one point, I know one of the couples down there was out of there. They had, got them a place to stay, and they were, off the streets, had a place to stay. But I believe they had 2 dogs, and the dogs were causing problems in the place where they were staying. So they ended up leaving, and now they're back down on Long Wharf. But like I said, we are aware that they're down there. Our outreach team is going down there on a regular basis to offer them services. We're also redirecting some of our assets down to the Long Wharf and behind the Chart House, Christopher Columbus Park, just to try to address the issues down there. We're going to start sending the night guys down there, try probably 8, 9 o'clock to try to catch them from setting up before they get set up down there. So we're going to have the night guys go down there about 8, 9 o'clock, try to clear it out. We're going to have the midnight guys go down there as soon as their shift starts and try to keep it clear or move anybody who's down there. And then also at 6 a.m., they're going to make another sweep down there to try and keep that area clear. But this is something that we're just starting, and hopefully this will work to help, curb that problem that we're having down there on the wharfs. But that is all I have. Like I said, I tried to keep it short as not to take up too much of your time. If any questions, comments, or concerns, I will do my best to answer them for you. If not, I will direct them to the proper people to get you the answers that you need.
Great. Officer Toomer, thank you very much for, I'm sorry you had so many things you had to cover, but it's always good to know that you're taking good care of us. Do we have questions for Officer Toomer?
Excellent update. I'm only sorry that the words Rowes and Wharf appeared in so many of his reports.
Yeah, right, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks, officer.
Mark, I just have a really quick one, I hope. We've in the past have talked about cannabis usage outside, and I'm just trying to get a clear sense of, there was, a lot of it happening, and summer's here and it's great. But what's the proper venue for us to report it? I filed something on 311 and then got a reply back that wasn't the appropriate message. Is this really something that rises to a 911 call, or is there something else we should do if, it's happening around our neighborhood?
No, I mean, by all means, the 311, you can always file a 311 because we do, those do get forwarded to us if they are police-related issues. By all means, you can call 911. I understand that you don't want to tie up the system because you think it's a low priority, but the calls are prioritized, so they will send someone down there. But it's more a case of us make a record being made of the incident, so that way we know if there is an ongoing problem, we can direct some resources down there. If it's more of a thing where certain times a day, if you notice that it's certain times a day or certain days a week, then we can try to address the issue that way. Unfortunately, with the decriminalization and legalization of marijuana, we are encountering that people smoking outside and especially I guess down there, they like the view down there on the water. So, you know, you want to smoke joint and have a nice view. That's a nice backdrop down there on the water. But, you know, we do try to move people along and, you know, emphasize, you know, the rules as far as smoking in public and stuff, and, you know, try to make it enjoyable environment for everybody, not just the people that are smoking. So by all means, feel free to call 911 once we're aware that there is an issue. Like I said, we can redirect some of our assets down to that area. We have a bike squad that works on all 3 shifts, and it consists of, you know, anywhere between 3 to 6 guys on bikes, and they ride around together and they address issues. So we can always have the bike guys go down there and ride through during the times of day when it's happening, just as a presence. And usually that's a deterrence enough to, you know, keep people from doing it.
Great. Thank you very much.
That's great. Officer Toomer, thank you very much. And thank you for everything that you do for us.
All right, thank you.
We're going to hear from Carolyn Conway, who's the attorney for 110 Boulevard Restaurant. Carolyn.
Good evening. Carolyn Conway, 350 West Broadway, and I have with me tonight Mr. Laz Skeetis, who is the proposed manager of record of the 110 Boulevard Restaurant LLC. You may know this, this premises is a long time. It was the Times for many years. It was Ayers Rock, and I believe that the last incarnation was as the Littlest. It is right at the end of Broad Street, directly across from the Greenway. And the principles of the applicant is cost of food provisions, basically. And what they've done together with Mr. Skeetis is to bring, they want to bring all of their ability to import various meats and cheeses and everything, and open up one of the few charcuterie restaurants in the North End. Laz, can you call up the floor plan for us? I have to admit, I'm not the best at this, but you'll see that the floor plan basically covers what the former licensed premises was. It has a capacity of 110. We've put on the floor plan a very small bar. We're asking for 8 seats at the bar. And it's going to be, as I said, just a very small restaurant. You'll see that I know that Laz is trying to do this.
I can do it. I don't want to shortchange your presentation at all, Carolyn, but we have seen a version of this in the past. Is that correct?
I don't know that you've seen a version of this in the past. This is our record. This is the landlord is basically the same family. They came in, they now own the property. They've come in. There we go. There's as you can see that there's a smaller kitchen, because as I said, it's meant to be a charcuterie board. It has a small bar, and then we have the entire premises has 110 seats. We have submitted to you, basically, as I said, it's meant to be small bites. It's meant to be, again, charcuterie with wonderful meats and everything. And also with wines and other spirits that the Costa provisions have been. Mr. Skeetis has close to 42 years of experience in the food and beverage industry, and it's his experience that we're bringing forth because, as I said, the Costa Provisions wants to come in and open up they're looking to get into the restaurant business. Now, right now, our hours of operation look to be where it's a 2 o'clock license that's going in there, but given the amount of labor shortages and everything, right now we're going to be looking to open at between 4 and 5 in the afternoon. We expect that we will be closed by 11 or 12, but we are asking for the 2 a.m. closing to be there because we're hoping to get some small private parties, and we want to be able to look at that. Laz, can you show the design, the concepts that we're looking at? We're looking to be more or less along the lines of what you would expect on a side street in Paris, with a very homey atmosphere. You know, so that our target audience is people in the neighborhood, and also, you know, anybody who is, we're looking for a more mature audience, or clientele that's out there looking for these kinds of tasting. You can see as we're going down, this is the ambiance that we're looking to put in. By the way, the space is totally gutted at this point, and we would be looking to open maybe in the spring of next year. But as you can see, this is the type of small impact. We hope very homey places that the people in the neighborhood, especially all of the condo owners and local residents, would love. We've gone out, we've talked to people, and this is what we believe that the neighborhood would like. Can you also bring up, Laz, just the for the plates?
I'm sorry, this is Mark doing that. What
Oh,
were the-
Mark, I'm sorry, but I've also submitted a PowerPoint where we showed where what the menu items would look like for this, what we're doing. I know I sent it to Suzanne.
Okay,
I did not send it to Mark because we've seen that before.
Okay, well, I just in case anybody else had.
yeah, we don't have to see what the food looks like, but we appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, well, as you said, it's more or less small plates, and as I said, the concentration is going to be on what cost of food provisions can bring that we believe nobody else can bring, especially into the neighborhood. And then, as I said, specialty cheeses, specialty meats, you know, brandied fruits, burrata, that type of things. That's what we're looking to bring to the neighborhood. Again, it's 110 seats at most, and with a very small bar, we don't expect that it will be any kind of attraction to younger people. Now, with respect to entertainment licensing, although the floor plan shows a small stage, we have not, by the way, filed anything for entertainment. And what we'd like to do, and what we're committing to do, is to do a series of one-day entertainment licenses to see what the neighborhood would really want and what works in the neighborhood. We are allowed by the city of Boston to get several one-day licenses, and in my experience, that is the best way to test the waters, if you will. We can go in right now. What we're seeing is in the entertainment industry is that you're seeing, you know, one person with either an acoustic guitar with some, you know, background music to enhance what they're doing. And prior to committing to full-time live entertainment, we'd like to do that. And then afterwards, we would come back to the neighborhood again for the live entertainment license, because that would also require another public hearing with the Mayor's Office of Consumer Affairs and Licensing. We have not asked for it. Also, with respect to as I've been asked about outdoor dining, our application right now does not include any outdoor dining. Although there was a large patio for the former licensees, that's not right now where we're going. So we haven't asked for it, and we do understand that if we ask for it in the future, we would have to undergo another public process, because we would have to we would have to change the description of the premises to add that outdoor patio. So right now, the application does not ask for that outdoor patio. And again, given the construction, we would not anticipate even considering that until next summer. And again, we're still talking to our architect. What do we want to do? What if anything, we would want to build out on the patio, if anything, and we haven't gotten there yet. So right now, what we want to do is we want to move this license in there so that we can undergo the architects, the designers, everything else to get into and build this space out so that it can be open next spring. As I said, our goal is to be the neighborhood's favorite little spot for people that they can go after work, pre-theater, that time, maybe after theater. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for the people to stay all night. We're looking for the people to come in and enjoy these small plates.
Great. Thank you. I think that's a pretty full description. Let's hear questions that we have. Anything about sound or lighting or concerns anyone has? Carolyn, just so you know, what we do is we take questions after your presentation, and then at the end of the meeting, as we go into executive session, we will vote.
And we're
as
happy
our
to do it.
opinion is.
I also submitted to you what we anticipate as the signage.
Yeah.
We don't, of course, we would be more than willing to take a no neon sign, no anything kind of restriction that's there. I don't think anybody wants that. We just want to make it as, as cozy as possible going in there. So there you see what we anticipate. By the way, Premier.
It's not actually at your front door there, that location, right?
No, well, as we said, we wanted to give you a concept. We haven't done it, but it's more the other one this is the third one that I gave you. The first and second are ideal.
Sorry, I didn't see those. Okay, right. But you have to go through a separate signage review process, I assume, right?
Well, we're going to have to go through BPDA. Signage is different when it's flush against the building rather than having anything that goes perpendicular to the building or all of that. But this is what we just intend on having, this very, very small indescript signage. We want to be the intimate place to go. We don't want to be the place that, that looks like it came out of the movie Beetlejuice.
Great. Questions of anyone else, of Carolyn?
No, I think so. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and Mr. Askidas is available as well.
Sure. Members of the Wharf District Council, any questions?
I just have one quick question. Will you be doing takeout?
We don't have the zoning for takeout at this point. We've reviewed the zoning, and the zoning gives restaurant as of right on the first floor in the Greenway the Greenway overlay district. We would have to go to the zoning board of appeal to get takeout. So we have not filed for takeout. And, as I said, if we go for takeout, we would be expected to go through the community process again. But we have not requested it.
And you do have a liquor license that goes with this, I take it?
Well, the liquor, that's our thing. We're buying a liquor license that is coming from the Fenway area.
Gotcha.
And going into this space.
Understood. Okay. Other questions, Wharf District Council? Great. Carolyn, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for the last minute juggling of information that we asked of you, which you then provided. Makes it much easier for us to have a good.
And my pleasure, really. And we're looking forward to serving the neighborhood. We really are. And we just think that it's just going to be a real plus.
Great.
I'm looking forward to it. I live in the North End, so I can't wait to get down.
Great. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
As we, before we have our climate resilience presentation, Norm Meisner wants to say something about the BPDA zoning changes coming up. Is that right, Norm?
Yes, correct. Thank you, Mark. So we only very recently found out about a meeting that the BPDA is having tomorrow from 6 to 7:30 on a proposed zoning amendment for the tidelands and the land underwater, to have them be not included in the lot area and in the FAR calculations, for floor area ratio calculations. So I'm not an expert on this, but the supposed goal is to limit the size of waterfront developments. But a knock-on effect of what they've done is to make it harder for existing properties to make necessary changes to climate, to combat climate change. Instead of what I think in any way the city of Boston should be doing, which is making it easier for existing properties to do what they need for climate resilience. This proposed zoning change is being thrown at us in the summer when nobody's around, on an evening where there's a fundraiser for Representative Michlewitz at the exact same time, which will draw people away. They are doing this without any contact to waterfront properties to let them know this is what's in the works, without any workshops or anything else to engage the community. And given that Mayor Wu came in with a platform of more transparency, this doesn't seem to be accomplishing that. So Harbor Towers is going to make a statement into the record tomorrow at the meeting, basically saying this process should be delayed, first of all, until the fall, when everybody's back from vacation and can be engaged in this. And prior to a meeting to talk about proposed changes, that we're asking the BPDA to hold workshops with the relevant parties. Now, this, I think, may impact some of the work that the Climate Ready Task Force is doing, because we're talking about 17 properties in our Wharf district that border the water. And to make some of the changes, it's going to mean changing the floor area ratios for some of these buildings. I think it's important for as many people as can to attend the BPDA meeting tomorrow and just make it known that you're moving a little fast. Let's understand the implications on anything that addresses climate resiliency before we go ahead with these zoning changes.
Sure. Norm, is this a virtual meeting?
It is a virtual meeting.
Okay, can you make sure that Suzanne sends out to everybody the information as to when that is? Because I think that's very important. And I'm wondering also whether we should talk later, whether or not it would be useful to get some technical advice from our friends at Arup as to what the meanings might be in ways that perhaps we haven't even thought about so far.
Agreed, fully. And I'll get that to Suzanne this evening.
Great. Thank you very much. Kind of a scary thing, frankly.
Mhm.
Okay, let's see. And I believe that we have some, let's see, I saw some people from the counselor's office. Is that right? So, Melissa, I don't know if you're available, but if there are ways of sharing the Wharf District Council's concern about the process that this is going through here, we'd appreciate that. Okay, so
we also have representatives from the BPDA on
great.
the Zoom as well.
Okay, I can't see everybody on there, but oh yes, I see Chris is there too. Yeah.
Perhaps we should have at our executive session, perhaps we could have a short discussion on something that the Wharf District Council could communicate.
I think that's
to
great.
The BPDA and to the counselors, because there are other counselor representatives on this Zoom as well.
Good. Well, let's make a point of that. Okay, I'm going to turn this over. We're to Derek Anderson, who's our fearless leader from Arup, who is going to, this is really a major milestone meeting for us that I'm not going to introduce more than just have Derek jump right into it.
Thank you very much. All right, let me share my screen here. Make sure I get the right one. Yeah, really appreciate the time. Mark, did you have any Any thoughts in terms of how much time you'd like me to go here, or just walk through the whole thing?
We have for you about 20 minutes,
No, we
no.
allocated a half an hour.
half an hour. Yes, great.
Yep.
Half an hour.
Great, thank you. So yes, really appreciate it. This is a milestone moment in our resiliency project for you all. We have largely completed the bulk of our due diligence assessments and have now documented our findings in a basis of design report. So I wanted to just walk through what this report shows with you all, so you're familiar with the content. I'm not going to go through everything page by page. I'm going to, kind of do a page turn, but I'm going to skip a lot of the material here. I just want folks to get a sense of what's in here and what we're really looking for you all to get your voices heard in this process is really one of the key things.
Derek,
So,
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt because I know that there's a lot of words on this. We're going to put all this stuff on our website, right? Okay, so is it ready? Is it ready for that?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so don't worry, everyone. You will be able to go to our website and read this in detail because it is full of meat. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes,
Could I just ask a quick question? Derek, do you want folks to ask questions during the presentation, or do you want them to save their questions?
I'm fine with jumping in during the presentation. That's fine.
Go right ahead.
All right, so like I said, I'm not going to read everything here. I'm just going to give a bit of a flavor of what's in here so you know where to look, because this is a lengthy report. We've got 2 PDFs here. The body of the report is about 47 pages, and then we have the appendices if you're interested in more information about any specific topic that we cover in the body, and that's a bit longer and quite technical. So the intent of this report, why we're presenting it to you today, is we're trying to really summarize this resiliency project's approach and the intended deliverables, so you all have a good idea of where this is going. So you can say, oh, well, are you thinking about this? What about this? Why aren't we doing it this way? We're looking for that feedback. We're trying to share the findings of our due diligence assessments. We've now gone through and we've collected information from a lot of the property owners. We've reviewed the information. We've found where we have data gaps, and we are looking to, and we've also started summarizing some of the key findings from the previous studies. We know you all and many others in the community have really participated a lot in previous community engagement processes with Climate Resilience Boston, the Coastal Resilience Solutions process, the prior visioning study by Wharf District Council. So we're trying to be sensitive to all the time that you've already put into those by capturing some of the key findings that are relevant to the resilience strategies in this document. So it's very important to us that you guys, take a look at that initial review, get us your feedbacks. Let us know if we're off the mark anywhere, if we've missed something important to you. We're also looking to just solicit feedbacks on our key design assumptions. So as we've looked at the technical data and found our data gaps, we've started making assumptions about what we're going to do to fill in those gaps where we don't have information, where this is a concept study. So if you see that we're making an assumption, now's the time to let us know that you'd like us to consider something else, something more, or you've got a little nuance to it, and we'll get that into the process. Like I said, I won't talk through everything. We've got some fantastic folks with you all at the Climate Resilience Task Force and our management team participating and contributing greatly to this process, along with our consultant team. A couple quick things I want to highlight here. We do have a definitions section to kick this off because there's a lot of technical terms and a lot of terms being defined here. I just want to, because I'm going to drop a couple terms and I want people to be on the same page. We are defining the Wharf District stakeholders for the purposes of this report and project as those who live, work, and own property in the Wharf District. We're defining the community with a capital C as Commonwealth of Massachusetts residents, those who may visit the Wharf District, and those who may be impacted or benefit by the Wharf District or this project. That's basically everybody, but we wanted to put a definition to it. EDI partners, EDI means social equity, diversity, and inclusion. So we're going to be working with the city of Boston closely to identify organizations and or champions of EDI who can help us in this project. And then the waterfront properties are those shown here in blue, and the inland properties are all the properties outside of that blue zone. So those are a couple key terms there. We'll skip through the rest. We do have definitions in here. So basically, What I really want to highlight here, so we've got a quick summary. The point of this project is that it's an engineering assessment that's looking to build on the prior work by the City of Boston. And specifically to do that, we'll be incorporating community priorities and preferences. That's where we need your input here. Integrating prior city and property owner initiatives, and updating the prior plans in the Coastal Resilience Solutions report with new flood predictions and with site-specific considerations that we can identify viable design, permitting, and funding strategies. This will result in the identification of preferred strategies for each waterfront property and alternative strategies where there are risks like significant regulatory requirements. We've identified a number of design and permitting considerations that will inform this approach. I would recommend taking a look at these. Some of the key ones here are that we're designing at least to the city's target design flood elevation in Coastal Resilience Solutions, if not a little higher. I'll talk about that in a moment. The work is generally going to need to be sited on land with public interest to maximize funding and maintenance opportunities and public-private partnerships. We will be tying into work being done by private development sites in the district. And we will very much be focusing in on issues of access, in particular emergency access, pedestrian access, and so on for people of all abilities. And of course, one of the important ones here will be maintaining a contiguous harbor walk. All of these are straight out of Coastal Resilience Solutions, Chapter 91, Chapter 25A. A lot of these are actually quite hard requirements for any project to gain approvals, as opposed to preferences of anybody in particular. But please let us know your thoughts. So the approach on this project is really three-pronged. First is engineering due diligence assessments, which we are just now wrapping up and are summarized in this basis of design report. It really goes through, again, things like emergency access, accessibility, waterfront transportation, as well as a number of other key considerations for identifying resilience strategies. There is then a community engagement process where we will be reaching out to all of you, the stakeholders of the Wharf District, through meetings like this where we present our findings and ask for your input so you can be part of this project. We don't want to do this alone. We need you guys so that this can be successful. So please let us know your thoughts. We'll be presenting to you at each deliverable and providing a comment period for you to get your thoughts in. Similarly, we'll be engaging with the waterfront property owners in a series of workshops. So if you are a waterfront property owner, we're looking to get in touch with you and set up a meeting where we talk through your preferences and your understanding of your own property so that we can make sure we identify solutions that work with the site-specific considerations of each property. And then we'll be working with EDI partners, and I'll talk through that in a little more detail in a moment, but we'll pull in all of that input from you all into the concept designs of the preferred and potentially alternative strategies. So for what does that mean for waterfront properties? We're gonna have a series we're gonna have draft resiliency plans for each waterfront property, a set of permitting considerations and cost benefit analyses. For the inland properties, we'll be identifying inland flood resiliency guidelines. And for the Wharf District as a whole, we'll be putting together preliminary and final resiliency plans, cross sections, a concept report, cost estimates, implementation timeline, and a list of funding sources and financing opportunities. We do have a whole appendix that walks through each of those deliverables. I'm not going to have time to go through those in this call, but we do have a whole section, we're not an appendix, we have a whole section of the report that has pictures showing each of those examples. I do want to touch on our approach to community engagement. It is important to know what this project is and what it's not. It is an engineering assessment to identify resiliency strategies. It's building on the previous extensive community engagement work done by the city, as I mentioned, Climate Ready Boston, Coastal Resilience Solutions for downtown and North End, as well as the work done by Wharf District Council. So we're leveraging all of that great community engagement work already done. We are not planning or designing the public and private land improvements that are ultimately going to be needed to implement these strategies. We're really identifying the resilience strategies themselves. We're identifying things like the locations, the elevations that might be feasible, looking into the engineering aspects of that. This is an engineering study here. And we are looking at the different types of strategies that can fit into those spaces and protect the district against the flood hazards that we anticipate to come, because those flood hazards are really non-negotiable, and we need to meet those. So we have to acknowledge that because we're not designing improvements to those public and private spaces, the associated comprehensive community engagement initiatives that are really necessary to effectively incorporate critical issues like waterfront access and social equity, diversion, and inclusion in waterfront planning and design really can't be fully addressed by this project alone. We acknowledge that. But that said, it's also very important to recognize that any assessment of district-wide flood resiliency strategies must consider the impacts on waterfront access and the associated issues of EDI. So how do we, how far are we able to take it in here versus what needs to happen subsequently? This project is going to, in this report, we have already reviewed the community and Wharf District stakeholder priorities and preferences that were expressed in those previous extensive community engagement initiatives. So we're asking you, this is very important, to give your input into those preferences. Those are a couple years old. Climate Ready Boston's 2016, Coastal Resilience Solutions is 2020. Things have changed and evolved, and we need to hear from you about where you're at today and get new voices into this conversation. But we're building on what's already been done there. We're going to work with the City of Boston closely to identify EDI partners and talk with them in terms of the EDI partners and City of Boston, as well as you all, to help us really summarize what the present day community preferences and priorities are. That's a bit of a circular loop. We're going to try to make sure we get that right with all of those partners. And then those community preferences and priorities will become evaluation criteria, which we use to directly assess and identify the preferred strategy. So we're really trying to incorporate those community preferences directly into the decision-making process here as we assess and identify preferred strategies. From there, we'll then develop the real concept, the deliverables in the preliminary district plan, the inland guidelines, and the final plan. And each of those will have a presentation like this where we give you, we walk through what it is and give you a couple week comment period to get your thoughts in. Similarly with the EDI partners in the City of Boston. I've got a calendar here. If you're interested in when those comment periods are, you can see down here at the bottom, the deliverables and the comment periods and what dates. So you can start getting that into your calendar, and please do. This table also walks through dates that we're anticipating for presentations and the one-on-one workshop dates with the waterfront property owners, which will be starting up in mid-September. So quickly understand community considerations. I'm not going to go through this in interest of time, but what we are doing here is just summarizing these 3 previous community engagement activities on the following 3 slides. So we go through, and for Climate Ready Boston, this is a frozen snapshot in time of what the evaluation criteria and design considerations were as they were documented in those publications back in 2016. Similarly for 2020 Coastal Resilience Solutions, and similarly for the 2019 Wharf District Visioning Study. So please do take a look through those. Let us know what you think of the thoughts then. Let us know if we think we missed anything that was captured in those processes back then. And let us know, more importantly, this is now the opening of a time period for you all as stakeholders to let us know what's important to you now so that we can incorporate your, regardless of where we were at a few years ago, what's important now. And then very importantly, we've identified this map where we've tried to map out the access considerations. These are things like accessibility points, points where ADA accessible paths end at the waterfront in purple, emergency access points, places where there's enough space for an emergency vehicle to get to the waterfront, where those points end, and waterfront transportation access points. We've also identified in green a number of the priority evacuation infrastructure that needs to be considered. So again, if you feel we're missing anything important here, let us know. And on this slide, we just summarize all of those community considerations from the prior efforts. So again, do please let us know your thoughts on this. In particular, this group on the left will be the start of a list of community priorities and preferences, which we will work with the city, with the EDI partners, and with you all to refine, and will become a part of the decision-making tool for assessing and identifying preferred strategies. Like I said, we have a section on project deliverables. I am not going to walk through this one by one, but just quickly, we've got preliminary district-wide plans, We have the property specific plans. I do want to pause here just for a moment as a bit of a plug. Anybody on the line who is a waterfront property owner, the process you can expect with this is we will, with our workshops in particular, is we'll be reaching out. We'll schedule a meeting where we can talk through your understanding of your property, what success means for you in terms of your property and a flood resilience strategy, what you want to see baked into these systems, what your thoughts are on the previous studies. At this point in these workshops, we will have a preliminary plan where we've refined the previous strategies. So we want your input into this. Once we've had that first workshop, we'll then go away, produce a plan like this for each property, which identifies refinements to those locations and elevations of strategies, as well as the types of strategies that might fit into those spaces, and a cost benefit analysis of the different criteria that we pull out of our work with you all and the larger community. From there, we'll then have a follow-up workshop with you to say, hey, did we get it right? What do we need to get your buy-in in terms of refining this, so that at the end of that process, we have a set of strategies for each property that people say, all right, you've incorporated what I need to see for this to be successful for me. And we're able to pull that in to the district-wide plans at the end. I do have an example here, the inland guidelines. I can circle back to any of this if people have questions. We will put together an implementation timeline. Again, skipping forward just to give a flavor of what's in here, really. I will pause a little bit on the design flood recommendations. We'll skip through a little bit. I'll jump to this slide here. What I want to show here is, I'll zoom in. I apologize, I didn't realize I was zoomed out a little bit there previously. We have 3 recommended design flood elevation types for this project. We have a reference design flood elevation here in orange. That is the Coastal Resilience Solutions target elevation, design flood elevation. We are not recommending using that because recently the Article 25A Coastal Flood Overlay District has identified some new elevations, which when you add the necessary freeboard for a district-wide system becomes more conservative or equal to. So you can see in a lot of cases they're equal, but in a couple cases it's 6 to 12 inches higher. So because this is a present day regulated design flood elevation that properties would be required to meet, this is our recommended minimum design flood elevation. The point is flood strategies will be built to this minimum elevation. We then also have a group of strategic design flood elevations. These are kind of future thinking. Idea being that we build to the minimum, but design so that they can be elevated to these strategic elevations. You'll see we've identified 3 different categories here, one for waterfront, one for wharf, one for inland. And the reason for those different elevations is wave height. Waves get smaller as they go inland and lose energy. So there's a higher elevation at the waterfront than at the wharf and at the inland side. So we've got different elevations for those. So if the strategy is at the waterfront, you can expect it to be higher than if it's inland at the building side. There is a slide in the appendices that goes through how we built up this process if you're interested. Basically, super quick, we are using the Massachusetts Coastal Flood Risk Model. That's the latest and greatest modeling by the state, which accounts for 51.5 inches of sea level rise in 2070. We're doing a 1% annual chance flood, also known as a 100-year storm, adding waves and adding 2 feet of freeboard. Coastal Resilience Solutions does not include freeboard. I want to make this clear. We are including 2 feet of freeboard. The reason for this is the FEMA levee certification standards require all of these criteria are baked into their flood models, and they require 2 feet of freeboard for a district levee system. So to maximize opportunities for federal funding and public-private partnerships, we think it's important to target an elevation that FEMA may end up getting to, assuming their flood models eventually catch up with those of the states. That's really it on design flood elevations, although we do have a note in here about harbor walk considerations. That's not necessarily part of the resilience strategies protecting the district, but those harbor walks are going to need to be elevated to minimize sunny day flooding. So we've got some elevations for consideration in here for that. Got a summary of permit strategies. There's a whole report on permitting in the appendix, just one page just to summarize. Big items here are there are written requirements which are favorable to us, and there are unwritten policies where some agencies aren't in practice really comfortable with elevating seawalls, placing fill in the floodplain, and so on. And those are going to be some of the main challenges here. We've identified the specific permit regulations that are going to be required. And finally, in this section, we've collected information from these properties. Basically, in green, we have completed our data collection. In purple, we've got partial data collection. Orange is in the works, and red is missing. Primarily, that is Independence Wharf, and that's mainly due to a recent transfer of ownership. But we have included design assumptions, which go through for each data type on the left, what assumptions we're going to make if we're missing that data. So this is where our design assumptions lie. And if you wanted to see what assumptions we're going to make if we're missing, for example, information about the building foundations or the seawall construction, you can come here and take a look and say, okay, this is what the team's going to be assuming as they move forward. Also, when we make this assumption for missing data, what does that mean for construction cost, construction schedule, and permit approvals that we will be estimating in this project? So we're categorizing those as low, moderate, and high risks to our own confidence level when we estimate costs and schedules for this project. Those categorizations are based on these this breakdown. This is at the site level. So when we say that there is a moderate risk of construction costs, we're saying that there's in the ballpark of a 1 to 10 million range that we have a confidence range on as a result of that assumption at the property level, not at the district level. That really covers the main body of it. Just one more thing I want to highlight in the appendices. Appendix A, we're calling our waterfront property toolkits. If you're along the waterfront, please do take a look at this Appendix A. You don't have to take a look at the whole appendix, it's quite long, but Appendix A has a map for each individual property where we go through and we show the elevations of the property for the existing ground. We provide information about finished floor elevation, the approximate minimum ground at the waterfront, which is generally the lowest ground elevation, and the height of the barrier. This height of barrier, as we define up here, is based on the greatest flood elevation, that real long-term strategic flood elevation at the waterfront. So when we're calling out 11.8, that's the worst case scenario for this property. You're saying you're building a resilience strategy right at the edge of the waterfront based on present day elevations, and all the way up to our greatest design flood elevation. It's only really going to come down from there. Like I said, we're going to try to build to the minimum, design to this greatest elevation. We're also identifying accessibility points, waterfront transportation access points, seawall information, and so on. If you see anything on here that's not right or is incomplete, please do let us know. Similarly, for each property, we've provided that same table we were just looking at with one additional column, just noting if we have those critical pieces of information for your property. So here you can say, okay, the team has information about building utility elevations, or at least partial information. This is the assumption they're going to make when they don't have it, and these are the risks. So you can get an understanding of what assumptions we'll be making. So please do take a look at these. Give us a shout if there's anything in here that that you feel is not quite here. So I want to note, actually, there's one thing I missed in the design flood elevation. We do have a nice table showing the ground elevation at each property, along with a reference DFE. That's the city, that's the target elevation identified in coastal resilience solutions, our project's minimum design flood elevation, and that strategic elevation. So again, we're building from ground level up to minimum and designing so that it can eventually be raised up to strategic. So just to recap, we do have a table of contents.
I'm sorry, if you could just go back for that one for a second, because that's a really key thing. I think that gives a big picture that is very difficult. I mean, it's a very technical report that you're doing, you and your team are doing, and I think that's really important because it's going to be the basis for all of the other discussions that are going to go on about how we're going to keep Boston dry. But this sort of summarizes it all in a way. And can you just sort of describe what it means to these properties as you have it charted here?
Yes, absolutely. Let's take an example. Let's say Rowes Wharf. It's property P8 in our designation. So for Rowes Wharf, the elevation, the existing ground elevation at the waterfront, this is not the elevation back here along the walkway between the buildings. This is the elevation out at the Harbor Walk. And really we're looking at the minimum elevation is 8.5. We want to build design flood elevations up to the minimum design flood elevation we've recommended. So what you would say is, all right, if we're building to that minimum elevation today, that's 15.54. These are all in NAV D88 datums. That's 15.54 minus 8.5. So you've got a 7-foot gap to make up with something, with a flood resilience strategy, if you're building at the waterfront.
And
Now,
another way of saying that is that at a 100-year storm, the Harbor Walk at Rowes Wharf will be 7 feet underwater.
Correct. So we're trying to protect against that flood situation. This is not something I'm doing because I am narcissistic. These are the water elevations that the latest and greatest flood models are projecting for 2070 for a 100-year storm. So it's very similar to Storm Grayson that came by a couple of years ago, but projected 50 years into the future. Harbor Walk could be 7 feet underwater in that situation. So what we're trying to do is say, all right, on an engineering side of things, what can we do to keep that water from causing real damage to the district? It's 7 feet there. Now, keep in mind that as you know, these elevations, the ground elevations generally come up as you go inland. We're not, I believe for Rowes Wharf as an example, as you're getting back up to that walkway in the middle, we're probably 2.5 or so feet down. So there's a big difference in some of these areas, but this gives the big picture. We can't capture all that nuance in a single graphic, unfortunately, but this gives the big picture of your worst case. If you want to build right at the waterfront, protect every square inch of land you've got today, this helps you capture that information. And then that green number up above, that's a bit more for the engineering folks at this stage. I think there are some implications in terms of land use, but we want to design so that we can go an extra 4 feet above that down the road.
Derek,
Yeah.
so you're saying at Rowes Wharf that the Harbor Walk today is at 8.5?
The lowest elevation of the ground
Harbor Walk?
of the Harbor Walk is at 8.5. Now that's based on the topography we've had. So if you wanted to take a look in the appendix for that specific property and come in, you can take a look and see that we've got contours identified, and you can see in general we're looking at elevate, a contour of 8, kind of snaking all the way around much of the property in this area. Now it's possible that topography is a little bit off, and we're looking for your input here. If you happen to know that there is an issue with some of the topography here, we will be investigating that a little bit further, but that existing ground elevation is a big headache for engineers because of the accuracy of data. So where we have received plans from property owners, we are incorporating that in. Where we have not received plans, we're using some of the LiDAR data and other publicly available data that's out there.
Well, if we make the assumption that that data is correct for the purposes of this presentation, are you saying that the Harbor Walk would have to come up another 7 feet?
If you wanted to build a flood barrier system at the edge of the Harbor Walk, yes.
As opposed to building it where? Where
If
else
we
are you going
were-
to build it?
If instead we were to look at, these buildings are much higher. The first floor elevations of these buildings is much higher than the Harbor Walk itself, providing some level of protection. And there are some building specific strategies that are already installed to protect some of these buildings. If we were to say, look at a flood barrier system back here, now you're talking an elevation closer to 12. So you're 4 feet higher, and now your barrier goes from 7 feet to 3 feet.
So Derek, I'm sorry, just for clarification, every townhouse level at Rowes Wharf would be underwater based on your numbers, because maybe there's an elevation of 3 feet or 4 feet from the walk, but they'll be underwater.
Actually, the first floor of 20 Rowes Wharf is at the same level, if you recall, of the plaza behind. So there's more information that has to happen here, but that the Harbor Walk is considerably lower than the first floor elevations. They're still endangered, but by much less than the 7 feet.
Yeah, so
I think it's about a 5 foot difference.
It is, that's correct. So we've got the first floor elevations of the buildings listed on the table on each diagram. So for Rowes Wharf, the north building is at just over 13, and the south and the central building is about 12.25. So that is 4.5 feet higher than that 8 foot elevation that we're flagging at the waterfront. So if we were to say, okay, we're in the ballpark of 12.5 to 13 for first floors. So really the first floors are up here. So now we're talking, that's where I'm pulling the 3 feet from.
Right. And can you tell us, we had this conversation earlier, Derek, can you talk about the difference between still water and wave?
Sure.
Are you on it? Yes, I hear you. You want to?
So in our definitions, we do cover a couple things here. So still water is the elevation of the storm surge during a flood event. So for Hurricane Grayson, if you were walking out on Long Wharf and you saw standing water, no waves, just sitting there for half an hour or so, that's the still water elevation. Now, when the tide is coming in, when the surge is coming in, you will have some waves that will vary up and down from that. And the height of the wave above that still water is that wave height that we're accounting for in this model. Not all models account for wave height. Some of them just account for still water. So
and what is yours? What are you doing?
We are accounting for the 2070 100-year or 1% still water elevation.
Still water.
We are looking at the wave run up. So we're including the waves. And we are also adding 2 feet for that strategic design flood elevation. So our minimum is based on today's regulatory requirements. We're not, that's not us making something up. It's taking today's regulatory requirements with the 2 foot of freeboard required by 25A for anything that's going to protect a residential building or critical infrastructure. That's where we come up with the minimum.
That's that upper line that you just drew.
So we're on
the ones you just drew, right there. What do we do?
Oh, sorry. So we are looking at
what are we designing to?
So the minimum is today's regulatory, really let's see. 25A, yes, includes, it's the same thing. So 25A is looking at still water with waves and a 2 foot freeboard is where we come up as we build up to the minimum.
So that's the line right there that you're talking about designing to.
Yep.
All right.
It's just that 25A is based on an older flood model. It's based on the Boston Harbor flood risk model, which is now becoming superseded by a newer model called the Massachusetts Coast flood risk model. So the difference between the minimum and the strategic is really the difference in those two models.
So obviously this is going to take us all a lot of time and effort to digest. And then you will be meeting with individual property owners to work out what it means for them specifically. And that all happens over the next 2 or 3 months, I think is the idea, isn't it?
Yes, let me pull up the calendar here. So for folks looking for when is this all happening, on our slide 16. So we are planning to continue to meet with the city and really and our EDI partners through August in particular. We're looking for comments from you all on this basis of design report over the next couple of weeks. So that's through August 5th. You can see up here, we've got dates up here, but really we're looking at August 5th for comment period on this report. We've got our preliminary plans, which will be coming out the end of August. So there'll be another comment period there, end of August and early September. And then in the following months into the fall and winter, we'll be reviewing the inland guidelines and the final district plan. So you can take a look at this calendar for those dates for those comment review dates. For waterfront property owners, we are looking at having workshops with you all starting in early to mid-September.
Great. Okay. So what more do you need from us this evening? Obviously, we want people to ask questions. If you, anyone who has questions, what would, other than answering questions, is there anything that you need from us this evening? Or is it a matter of digesting this and getting back to you?
I'm curious your questions. I'm curious if folks feel like we've missed something in particular. Keep in mind that, we are working with you. You are our partners. We can't do this alone. And this is not going to be successful without the engagement of you all as stakeholders, as well as the community, including the EDI partners and the city of Boston. So it's very important that we hear from you all and get your thoughts, because the more feedback we get, the more we're going to be able to bake that into the assessment and selection of strategies. And you'll be able to say, yes, this included my knowledge of my property, or when I go to the waterfront, I'm aware of this condition. And we can kind of crowdsource this in a way that we can't alone. So let us know if we're missing anything here.
And our plans are also to meet to reach out to the electeds and government agencies to make sure that we get their voices included in this and their opinions on the report as well.
Yep.
And that'll happen in the near future.
Yes. So this on page 2 kind of summarizes what we're hoping from you all. Let us know if we're off on the approach or deliverables from what you are expecting or feel like is necessary for this to be a success. Let us know, as we have documented site-specific information. If you're like, oh, well, this is clearly wrong, let us know. So we can fix that. If we've documented the community priorities and preferences, we acknowledge that those are a snapshot from years ago. Let's get your thoughts in here about what's important to you all. What's your priorities? What are your preferences? You are stakeholders here.
Yep.
And
I see a question from Marcella. Marcella, do you?
I put it in the chat. Is the city or state considering anything out in the harbor?
Yes. So in the previous plans by the city, there were a number of strategies that looked at outboard solutions, basically solutions that come out of the water. They've identified, for example, around harbor towers being one place where there's limited land, and it might be necessary to consider pushing out into the existing water in that area. We're not at that point of making that, forming an opinion on that just yet as a team, but yes, that has been investigated and recommended as for further consideration by the city in their past studies.
But if the question was, did they consider a damming up the harbor, that was looked at and determined to be infeasible, right, Derek?
Yes, generally much further out, that is not something that we're considering to be a likely reality. There is the possibility that the Fort Point channel may end up being dammed. That's something that we understand Boston Water and Sewer has been looking at. We don't know the extent of their study there yet. We are going to continue to try to reach out to them and find out where they're at with that. There are a lot of environmental issues and other issues associated with that. We can't say that that's going to be a reality either, but that's the most likely kind of dam situation that might protect some of the properties in the district.
I think
For
it's
this study,
important.
we're not planning on that. We want to come up with some strategies that you can plan for in case this dam strategy goes nowhere or as a redundant backup.
I think it's important for everyone to understand that Boston is considered one of the 9 most vulnerable major cities in the country. And that's why we're addressing this.
Mark, is it anticipated that the city and the state and or the feds are going to contribute to this?
Can only imagine that they would have to, right? There's no way it can happen otherwise. But who and when and how is on down the road. We're addressing how much it's going to cost. Where the money comes from is, this is a many year project, no doubt. Fernando, you had a question?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to put it into perspective for everyone that we're at 21 Broad Street and we're obviously going through construction and stuff now. And we were recently told within the last 3 months that in case of an actual 100-year flood, that we would have between 5 to 10 feet of water in our basement. So it's not just on the water that everyone I think should be paying attention to. It's across streets and it's deep into the city. We're not that close to the water.
Right.
We're still heavily impacted by it. So just to kind of put that into perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, and these, to be clear, the strategies that are proposed here by themselves won't protect individual buildings. They need to be coordinated with a broader system by the city and the bordering districts. And as part of that contiguous system, they'll protect the district, not just the waterfront properties. We're not really encircling a single waterfront property with a barrier as part of this strategy. This is something meant to protect the district as a whole. That said, there are a lot of flood pathways that could potentially go around this system until the city builds all of the district protection systems. And that is why we are proposing some inland guidelines for folks like you, Fernando, on Broad Street, to take a look at what's possible for you as an inland, at an inland property to kind of control your own destiny.
It's our understanding also that the North End is about to undertake a similar kind of public-private partnership using this as a model, and we hope others will as well. Norm, you had a question.
So I just wanted to address the good point that Bradley brought up about who's going to pay for this. And I would remind everybody that this study that we're talking about now was actually paid for by the state. We got an earmark from the state to fund this effort. And part of what Arup and their team are going to be looking at are going to be what are funding sources in the future for being able to accomplish things. So we truly are committed to this being a public-private partnership, and no one entity pays all the bill.
Norm, if I recall correctly, you had mentioned that one of our Representative Lynch's questions was, are you, there is our money. Are we ready to go? And the answer is not quite yet, right? But
yeah.
And Congressman Lynch pointed us to both FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers as other sources that we need to be working with.
Yep. Now, with those sources, there are procedures and planning that needs to happen, and actually needs to happen by the Army Corps. The city likely can't even do it because of conflict of interest. But those processes, when they go through the Army Corps process, you can open up significant funding streams. You generally need a public partner like the city of Boston to match funds or pony up some of the money in addition. That process, though, can be slow, and you can definitely jumpstart it through studies like these and additional work with private money as well. So there can be some benefits to some private investment to streamlining and getting these things into a list of projects for more funding.
Derek, I'm pretty sure I saw Columbus Park on there. Was the Greenway on there?
The Greenway is in the district and it's one of the stakeholders. It's not considered a waterfront property. That said, there certainly are strategies that do fall back to the Greenway location. For example, if there's a significant regulatory hurdle to building along the waterfront, or if a waterfront property owner really does not want a barrier along the waterfront side, then in situations like those, we may need to fall back to the Greenway location with a barrier system for some locations.
Joanne,
Brad, the Greenway Conservancy is participating in the task force. Both Chris Cook and Rachel Lake are on the task force. So they are being considered in the development of this report.
Joanne?
Thanks, Mark. Actually, my question is for Norm. So Norm, you mentioned at the beginning or part of this conversation about the zoning hearing tomorrow. If that proposed zoning is passed and enacted, would that negate Harbor Towers and possibly other properties from protecting going out in the water, as Derek said, that we might have to do that?
Well, that's a big question mark at the moment, Joanne. Even what we're planning for just to protect the buildings themselves, namely enclosing some of the porticos, that ratio, that change that they're talking about making, could impact our ability to just protect our own building, never mind doing something at the harbor's edge.
Okay.
Yeah. I hate to cut this short but we're going to talk about this a lot more. Derek, have you covered what we can for this evening, do you think?
Yes, I have.
Great. Thank you very much. I really encourage everybody to do what Derek says, which is go to our website, look at this. There's a lot of stuff. It's really important. Try not to be as scared as I am, but do be thoughtful about it.
And Mark, who should people send comments to? Do you want them coming to you? I'm happy to have folks send them to me, but we should drop an email.
Yeah, we'll put that on the website.
Great.
Yeah.
I was also wondering, would it be of value for me to send out a copy of this presentation to all of the folks who are on this Zoom call?
Sure, we should do that.
Would that be of any help?
Yeah, we should do both.
The question would be whether you can. It's a large report. I'm not sure the email system will support it for everybody.
So the main body is about 4 megabytes. The appendices are probably 40 or 50. So Suzanne, you're welcome to share the email that I sent out. There's a link in there to download both from a SharePoint site. That'll be open for the next 2 weeks, and then I can extend the date. So anybody who has that link can download those files from there.
Oh, good. Okay, that would satisfy that then.
That'll be great. Thank you again, Derek, and keep it going. That's important work. Matthew Murphy, about to be formally elected our new vice president, was at the meeting on July 15th. Matthew, can you tell us about the State Street renovation?
And you may want to mention the meeting as well. Not everyone knows about this meeting.
Yes, right.
Yes, we had a meeting last Friday at City Hall, which was organized by Councilor Flynn, now Councilor President Flynn. He really arranged the meeting and brought all the participants together. There were a number of folks from the neighborhood representing Wharf District Council, NURA, residents of various properties, business owners, etc., and with city officials. And this is regarding the State Street project, which has been much discussed here over the last months and years. And I will say, I can't say that it was an encouraging meeting, but I will offer a couple of positive takeaways. One is I really want to acknowledge that Councilor Flynn really took a very strong position in supporting our Wharf District alternative design, and basically really spoke quite strongly about making certain that the neighborhoods, the constituents here are really heard by the city officials that are working on this project. He really hears loud and clear that we feel that we have not been listened to, and he also advocated for a second, an additional pilot program that would look at 2 lanes of traffic as a pilot program, rather than the single lane that has been in place now for 2 years. At the meeting was Chief of Streets, Yasha Franklin Hodge, and his staff, and they stated pretty unequivocally that 2 lanes would not be a safe arrangement for State Street, and this was challenged by all of the participants, all the attendees were at the meeting, and also questioned the data that was shared as concerning that statement about 2 lanes. So the way things were left, Councilor Flynn said he wants to be certain that our neighborhood's concerns are heard and that the WDC alternative plan are reported directly to Mayor Wu. Now, Mayor Wu did have a representative there and who promised to share our alternative plan and to express our concerns about this 2-lane pilot project. And Mayor Flynn really stressed, Councilor Flynn really stressed that he supports our plan, and I think the next steps as we left the meeting was that we'd be awaiting word from him, from Councilor Flynn, when he hears back from the mayor. So there, if anything to be taken away, it did extend the conversation about State Street, and I think brought our concerns to bear at the table. I'm still not sure that our concerns were really heard by the folks there from BTD and BPDA, but the conversation does continue. And I would again stress that Councilor Flynn took a really quite a strong stance. So that's basically what happened this past Friday. And Susan, I don't give anything else you want to add.
I would also add that we have asked Councilor Flynn to set up a meeting so that we can present our concept to the 4 at-large city councilors, since we feel that they could be of assistance to us in communicating our position and also our designs. As Matthew said, we are concerned about the data that they are using to justify their reasoning for the 1 traffic lane concept. And we just feel that since we have asked for data in the past and it's never been given to us, that they are making assumptions that are not necessarily based on accurate information.
Suzanne, I have one point of clarification that I just don't know the answer to. I heard yesterday that down by the Cross Street Boutique Hotel, the one they're trying to get approved across between, I guess, Salem and Hanover, that Atlantic Ave down there is also going to have a bike lane, narrowing the street down there. Has anyone ever heard that? Because that will back up even further Atlantic Ave.
I've not heard that. We've not heard that. They normally don't go before the community and tell them where they're putting their bike lanes in. What I have learned is that they are working on an eastbound dedicated bike lane in the Wharf district and are working with key stakeholders.
But we don't know where at all yet. Again, it's not transparent.
No, not transparent at all. We have never been, I'm not sure who the key stakeholders are that are now involved with the dedicated eastbound bike lane.
So again, emergency situations, this is really troublesome.
No doubt. That's why we keep at it. So hopefully we
I
will,
would add,
go ahead.
I would just add one thing to Bradley's question, and that I was at a New Raw meeting just the other night because I live in the North End, and there was a lot of discussion about the Cross Street Hotel project, but that particular aspect did not come up in that meeting. So it's something I could ask Cheryl Greco about it.
That'd be great. That'd be good. It would be nice to know where yeah, it would be nice to know how the bike lanes are supposed to work, because that affects everything. Okay, Suzanne, we're kind of running out of time here because I want to make sure that we have time for our executive session. Do you have things on the neighborhood summer activities that you would like us to address specifically?
Normally, we just go and ask our member organizations if they have something that
Yeah.
they want to mention. I don't know if anybody has anything that's critical. Joanne?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to talk about our Sunday night movies in Columbus Park. We had our first movie, The Sandlot, on Sunday evening. And we've done these movies about 11 years. And I go and introduce them, and there's 75, 100 people. Just a nice showing. There were over 250 people Sunday evening.
Wow.
It was a wow. We're like, what? It was crazy. There were so many people, which was wonderful. And the next one is this Sunday. It's Dirty Dancing. And Suzanne is actually going to introduce that because, of course, she's on the board of Columbus Park too.
Yes, and I've
then-
seen the movie at least 20 times.
And then we have Philadelphia Story. Batman Begins is at the end of it. So, you know, it was lovely to see so many people and to see that lawn so full. We've always felt a sense of pride in putting the movies on, but to have that many people turn out, and they were from all over the city and beyond, different countries too. So I just wanted to share that.
Great. Thank you very much, Joanne. Anybody else? Okay. Can I ask members of the or representatives of the member organizations to stay on so we can have our vote to
Before everybody leaves, there's
okay.
one other thing about our August 3rd meeting. To meet the city of Boston's Chief of Community Engagement. It's a noontime meeting on the 3rd, and it's going to be on the Odyssey. And the boat's not going to move, so people don't have to worry about leaving the dock. But Brianna Milner, so I hope something will be coming out, but I hope you can put that on your calendars.
Yeah, it's an unusual time, but it's for us to have a meeting. But I think it would be great if we could have a good showing, because you know, this is somebody we're going to be working with in the future and who's interested in hearing from us.
So Mark, we've heard two of the new officers tonight, just incidentally. Can you please tell us who the officers are who are being elected tonight?
Yes, Martha La Posada is running for treasurer, and Matthew Murphy, who we already introduced as the new VP, but we didn't do the official election as we should, and so we will be doing that officially. Great. And we thank you, Martha and Matthew, both for stepping up.
Congratulations.
Okay, so members stay on, please. And
Voting members.
Yeah, voting members stay on, please, and we will and we will vote also on the other thing that was presented to us.